more the news at 4. Have a great day. See you then.
Through 4 p.m. We have a lot to get to in that time. So let's go over a few of the things that we've lined up for this first hour that we have here together. Still waiting on our first guest to join us on the line. But, obviously the war in Iran is still so top of mind and will be for some time now. So many people are on edge right now. So many questions have yet to be answered. And no matter whether you support it or you don't, all of us have a sense of heightened awareness right now as to what's going on overseas, and even the greater implications for safety here at home too. American troops' lives have already been lost. We know that. I believe we're at 6 so far, and many are still at risk. So Chicago professor Robert Pape is going to be joining me. He has been a wealth of information over the years when it comes to these types of things. He's going to be joining me to talk about airstrikes, a regime change, and what he calls the escalation trap. So we'll talk to him a bit later in the hour. Also, a research author from the Bank of America Institute is going to help me dive deeper into their new findings. Now, this is interesting because in our midday show, I just spoke with someone with the Beverage Commission, okay? And of course, there's a new alcohol tax that just went into effect, and they're seeing how businesses can navigate through this time, and also customers. They're worried about whether customers will go to the suburbs instead of staying here in the city of Chicago to indulge. They have concerns, but this new research from the Bank of America Institute says that more people are simply choosing to drink less, especially when it comes to drinking at home, and particularly for Gen Z. According to them, alcohol spending as a share of household budgets is hovering near 40-year lows. Pretty incredible stuff. And so we'll get into the details there, whether it's more health reasons that Gen Z is looking out for, or whether it's budget reasons, especially with new taxes. We'll talk about it all, but there is a lot to dive into there. Also, we're going to have the CEO of the National Archives Foundation, who's going to be zooming in just a bit to discuss the Freedom Plane National Tour. It is taking original founding era documents across the country for America's 250th anniversary. And so we'll get some more information on that as they get ready to go all over the country for such an important time in our country's history, and looking back, but also looking forward as well. But before we talk about our tour around the country, let's go ahead and start things here at home with what has people buzzing, and that is the Democratic National Convention just announced that Chicago is a front runner. We're to host in 2028 and 2032 for the Democratic National Conventions. Front runner for both of those years. The 2024 Democratic National Convention, do you remember that? I mean, I know a lot has happened since, but it's like, oh, it feels like it was yesterday. There was just so much that went into it. Feels like it was yesterday, and yet, we are now 2 years removed from it almost. It generated $371.4 million in economic impact, the most in convention history. So you can understand why we're still in play here. But where do we go from here? I want to talk about the overall proposal a little bit more now with Bob Reiter, president of the Chicago Federation of Labor. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. It's pretty exciting news, isn't it, that we're in contention. Chicago is not only the hometown of the American labor movement, but it's the hometown of the modern convention industry. And we've hosted more conventions here in Chicago than in terms of political conventions, Democratic conventions, Republican conventions, than any other city in the United States. So pretty stoked about it.
Yeah, I mean, we have a long history, as you've said, and most have gone off without a hitch. And so let's talk about some of the things that go into negotiations here. When you're putting together a bid, like what do you say for it to rise to the level of us being front runners, not just for 2028, but already for 2032 as well?
Well, I think that the things that give us an advantage in this convention, why our proposal and our bid looks so competitive with the other cities in contention, is because of our strong labor force, our ability to raise money here in the city. You know, we had enough money for this convention in terms of what was raised to be able to put money back out on the streets after the convention was over. It's usually people are still trying to figure out how to pay bills after a political convention. This convention did it all. We have a fleet of union hotels. We have great venues, you know, utilizing both the United Center for the evening programming and for the convention attendees, you know, having a great experience over at the crown jewel of American conventions, and you know, the largest convention center in North America, McCormick Place.
Yeah, you know, I spent hours upon hours reporting from the United Center during the DNC in 2024, and you just realize how much work goes into it, so much more than what people see on a TV screen when they're watching it in the evenings.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the United Center is built for hockey, basketball. They convert it for concerts on the weekends or for special events. But really, to put on a convention like the DNC, a lot of custom work has to go into preparing the United Center in terms of being able, you know, with this much media coverage and journalists coming from all around the world. You know, a lot of care goes into, you know, adapting a lot of the suites into media spaces. But then there's all the community engagement that, you know, existed around the convention for folks who lived on the west and the south side of the city, adjacent to both the United Center and McCormick Place. And we're able to stitch it together because we have an incredible workforce here in Chicago who knows how to, you know, transform that basketball arena into one of the greatest stages that you can have in order to talk about the values of the Democratic Party.
You know, it's interesting that we can look back at 2024 and say, well, that seemed like an overwhelming success, both for the city and for the convention. Do you think that there's a way of continuing to raise the bar?
Yeah, I mean, this is a town that's been raising the bar since its inception. I mean, you know, it sounds cliche to so many folks probably who've grown up in Chicago, but we literally have changed the course of rivers. We are a true international destination because of the people, you know, the people who live here. We have so many cultures. We have so many things that we bring to the table, and we're the crossroads of the United States. You know, truly, you know, Chicago is an international hub for travel. We're a transportation and logistics hub, and there's a reason why so many Fortune 500 companies headquartered here, have significant operations, because we have the best universities. So whether you're someone who's coming out of our universities or one of our incredibly, you know, incredibly popular apprenticeship programs, we really do it all. It's like when I tell folks, the CFL represents everything from airline pilots to zookeepers, from bricklayers to the xylophonists at the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. This is a hard-working town with people who put a lot of care and technique into what they bring to their community every day.
You were so right. And so from that perspective, you all wouldn't care whether it's the DNC or the RNC that's here, because it would just be more backing in terms of the labor that's here and the workers who could be used in these specialties, correct?
Well, I mean, we put on conventions. We'll do the work, anytime someone comes to visit the town. Now, personally, for me, having the DNC here in Chicago, as someone who does a lot of work with the Democratic Party, it means a little bit more, especially as the Democratic Party platform over the course of the last 16 years has moved back towards workers, and that we're in terms of, if you look at why Illinois is so significant to that story, and that piece of it is, look at our historic constitutional amendment passage that happened a few years back, where Illinois is enshrined a first of its kind workers' rights amendment into their constitution to protect the dignity of workers. So when I talked to the DNC about coming to Chicago, I talked to the party both of what we can do in terms of bringing the best labor force to the table to help them have a great experience for their visitors and for their attendees, but also, we're talking about the Democratic Party's living their values if they're here supporting a strong labor movement that continues to fight for people in every community to have a shot at the American dream.
You know what? When I think at the many, many times that this city has hosted conventions, and again, you think of like, oh, could we turn it around and do it again for 2028? I hear you, and you are a champion for this cause, and you get people inspired to do it again. Did you get any type of feedback from people who were like, okay, can we skip 2028 and just, maybe we'll be back and play 2032? Or are the people who you were representing like, no, let's go?
It's interesting you asked that. I let a couple of my folks who are very important to the process, know where we're at with the convention and the progress that we had made, and all I got were thumbs up, because it's important. It's important again for the platform it gives Chicago as a city that cares about workers' rights, but it's also important. It's also important, to keep that drumbeat of business going. Like I said, Chicago is the home of the modern convention. We have the largest convention center in North America. In addition, I'm sorry about that. Modern technology at work. In addition, we have the ability to unite people around so many causes that are important to American people.
Okay, now, when we have these conventions, is it more of a cost to the city or the DNC? Like, you've talked about money that pours back in, but is the bulk of the cost, say, for fences or things of that nature, obviously heightened security, things like that, is that more of a cost to the DNC or to the city?
It's more of a cost to the DNC and the host committee. Obviously, there's city resources that are in play as well, but the economic impact from the DNC, which you talked about earlier, helps put, as they say, as my friends in the hotel and restaurant industry say, heads in beds and people's seats in seats. So, it really, for the tax revenue that's generated, for the amount of businesses that get to, entertain and welcome guests. And after having just done it 2 years ago, we're going to have an even better game plan, and we're going to have an even better way to look at how to continually leverage the incredible tourism assets for the city, and also, accommodate our, everyday folks who are, coming downtown to work and play every day.
Okay, now I'm looking over some of the other contenders. You know who else is kind of at the top of the list like us. Who do you think is our toughest competitor when it comes to getting one of these conventions?
There's a few new cities that are in the mix, and there's a few cities who've held a convention in the last handful or so of conventions that have been held. I don't want to be disrespectful to any of those cities. I'm part of being the president of the CFL also means that I have relationships with my colleagues in all these other towns. But I'm a big believer in both the beauty and the grit of Chicago. So hopefully here in the coming days, weeks, months, I'll be apologizing to my colleagues in those other towns and saying letting them know that I feel sorry about their luck.
All right, we shall see. We shall see. But it's good to be in the front, at least. We'll see what happens from here. Thank you so much, Bob. Great chatting with you.
Thank you.
All right, take care. We'll all be looking for that update to see what happens from here. It's 1:16, though. Our next guest is already on the line, so let's take a quick 2-minute break, set things up, and we'll be right back. $118 right now, and with America's 250th anniversary, there are going to be so many different celebrations, commemorations, events that will be happening. And so I'm really excited to have a conversation with our next guest. The CEO of the National Archives Foundation, Patrick Madden, is joining me now. Thank you so much for your time.
Happy to be here.
And we are talking about the Freedom Plane National Tour. This sounds so cool. Give us some details about it.
Absolutely. So the Freedom Plane Tour is one of the biggest initiatives from the National Archives in Washington, D.C. to take some of our founding era documents around the country. And we're excited to share these documents normally tied up in vaults and very rarely on view, and definitely never traveled the country before. So this is our gift to the nation as part of the 250th.
Now, why do you think it hasn't happened before?
Well, these are very special documents. The archives' main job is to collect and protect these documents for future generations. So it's not something that we can really do on the regular. However, we've saved up the late time so that we can do something special like this for a big anniversary.
Yeah, making it extra special indeed. Now, what kind of plane?
Well, we're very fortunate to have a number of national sponsors, and Boeing came to us in a conversation, and they have decided to sponsor the plane with a 737, one that probably a lot of your viewers are familiar with through commercial travel. And they have put a very special paint job on there that says Freedom Plane on it, celebrating America's 250th. And that is how we're moving the documents around the country.
Aha. And when you speak of moving it around the country, where all are you stopping?
Well, we're starting. I'm here in Kansas City now. We just landed yesterday and starts in Kansas City. And essentially, they are on view for just 2 weeks in each of the cities. So it starts in Kansas City, goes to Atlanta, Los Angeles, Houston, Denver, Miami, Detroit, and Seattle. And so while that's not hometown to the Windy City,
Patrick, you skipped over Chicago.
A nice weekend trip to Detroit or Kansas City is possible, right?
Oh, you were like, wait, okay, I'm tracking. You skipped over us. What's going on? This is the land of Lincoln.
That is true. One of our goals, obviously, was to move these documents off the East Coast. There's a lot of 250th celebrations going on, the original 13 colonies, and move these out to places where folks who may not be traveling or have as ready access to Washington, D.C., to vacation, and to parts of the country that didn't even exist when these documents were written.
Now, I hear that this was inspired by a train tour before in like 1975. Tell us about that train ride in 1975 and how it's been adapted.
Sure. So for the bicentennial, the Freedom Train took for about 18 months, took a number of documents around the country to all 48 states and the lower 48, and I think over 1,000 cities and towns. And in this day and age, it's a little bit quicker and more efficient to take documents around by plane. And again, as I mentioned, we want to make sure these documents are available for future generations. So we've had to limit the amount of places that we can go on this tour.
Mm-hmm. Let's dive deeper into the actual documents. We understand they're significant, but let's go over them one by one.
Sure. So we start with the Articles of Association in 1774. This was the first time the colonies said, we're not happy with the British rule. So that's a really interesting document. And then also in that case are 3 oaths of allegiance. And I think these will be very interesting to visitors. So they're little cards that were sent to that famous wintry time in Valley Forge. And all the troops were asked to sign. And basically the oath is, we are no longer following the king, and we are going to break free. And so George Washington is number 1, and then he witnesses the other officers, and then General Knox then witnesses all the other troops that signed. So even before we had a government, we had a little bit of bureaucracy. They sent these cards over and say, hey, sign all these things. While at the same time, Washington was making sure there were shoes and food and ammunition. So that's going to be a really interesting thing for people to see. And then I would say one of the big stars is in our next case, which is an 1823 copy of the Declaration of Independence. So we were so thrilled that we did this Declaration of Independence in 1776. It traveled around the country through the colonies. It was obviously propaganda. Look at what we're doing. It was on view in Washington once it became the nation's capital, in a museum, in direct sunlight. It was starting to fade. So John Quincy Adams, the Secretary of State at that time, decided to make a copy. So they actually made a copper plate copy of this. They put a wet piece of paper on it, took some of the ink off the original, put it on the copper plate, and made it took William Stone 2 years to engrave it in reverse. And that copper plate we have in the National Archives, but from that, 200 copies were made, and this is one of the copies from the copper plate. So it shows people exactly what the Declaration looked like. All the signatures are there. Yes, John Hancock's signature is that large. And I think it's going to be a real opportunity for people to see that. So then we move to the Treaty of Paris, which obviously ended the war. And then in our last case, we have what we call a secret printing of the Constitution. This was typeset overnight, and notes are on the side of it as they were debating it. We have the roll call vote of the states voting on the Constitution. And then another one of my favorites is it's a draft of the Bill of Rights with the Secretary of the Senate's markups. So we hear about the government's marking up the bills. That's where it comes from. Each night it was printed up, and it's the job of the Secretary of the Senate to listen to the debate and make notes of what they were taking out, what they were putting in. And on this day, they were working on amendment or article number 3 of the Bill of Rights, which later becomes our First Amendment.
Wow, wow, wow. How do you keep all of that safe?
Well, for the trip, there's a lot of safety precautions, as you can imagine. We have terrific conservators and curators, registrars at the National Archives, teaming up with these professional museum staffs. We're thrilled to have the opportunity to work with our colleagues around the country. But I'll just say, trust me, the documents are safe, both on the road and when they're in the museum.
Okay, I shudder to think what would happen to me if you gave me the secret. But anyhow, how does it feel to be a part of something like this? I mean, obviously, working at the National Archives and Records, you would think like, okay, this person has a passion for preserving history, but I mean, also being in charge of this moment in time kind of adds something a little different and special to it.
It does. The 250th of the country is obviously a once in a generation moment, and we feel like we put a project together. This initiative is bold. It is something that I think calls for the moment. And so for us to be able to take these on the road and share them, make them more accessible to the public, I think for people, we mirrored the exhibit to kind of give the feel of the rotunda when you come into in Washington, D.C. in the National Archives Museum, where you have the original Declaration, the original Constitution, and the original Bill of Rights. And so in this exhibit, there are 3 cases, and we watched people walk through the rotunda, and they are really moved to see you are standing with the original document. You see the signatures, you think about those moments. And so with these documents that we're taking around, we hope we have that same inspiration, that same excitement for visitors of all ages, especially. I know a lot of school groups have already signed up to come to Kansas City to see it. And that's what we want to do. We want to make sure people are connected to our founding. They see what the founding ideals were really about. It's also humanized. They see the names and like, these are actually people. We sort of forget that with all the talk these days, that they're people who fought the war, who did all these things, made tough decisions, and started us on the path that we continue, obviously, to build a more perfect union. And that's the whole point, that we're not quite there. We're never going to get there. We're going to always work together towards those ideals that were held up.
Striving, we keep striving. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for what you do and keeping everything secure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I hope folks come out to see us. If you want to know where and when we'll be, go to freedomplane.org.
Okay, I'm sure people will be following those instructions there. It would be a lot easier if it was in Chicago, but, maybe we'll try to make a trip.
Great. We'd love to have you.
All right, take care. It's 1:28, everyone. Give us 2 minutes. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. 1:31 right now. We are rolling right on, and had a pretty interesting study that we just got a hold of here that we're going to kind of, inspect a little bit further here. So it found that alcohol spending as a share of household budgets is hovering near 40-year lows. What's behind all of that? Let's talk about it more with Jill Watford, a research author for the Bank of America Institute. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Anita. Here at the Bank of America Institute, we have access to nearly 70 million consumer and small business clients. And what does that mean? It means that we have a treasure trove of data that's really unmatched, and we get these unique and powerful insights into not only the overall economy, but also consumer spending and behavior changes. And so we see that spending is continuing to decline from these near 40-year lows. And why is that? It's not necessarily that prices are increasing, it's because consumption is falling. People are cutting back on alcohol. And they're cutting back on alcohol, or they're abstaining entirely.
So it's not that the price of alcohol is going up. I mean, it literally is here in the state of Illinois.
Right.
And in the city of Chicago, it literally is. We just got finished talking about a new tax. But it's not so much the tax. It's more so like a new generation of people saying they want to be healthier.
Exactly. It's not so much that, I saw that recently as well, the 1.5% tax, but it's not prices, it's consumption. It's really driven by two things. The first thing is the sobriety movement. In our data, we could see, or at least we saw after COVID, the increase in popularity of trends like dry January, and even the quiet increase of this trend called dry December, where people are trying to navigate, work, holiday parties, or even family gatherings without alcohol. That's on one hand. On the other hand, we have what we're calling the Great Moderation. And that's really driven by younger Americans. I mean, think people 21 to 34, they're cutting way back. I mean, 4 million less of those people are binge drinking than there were over a decade ago. So it is people either cutting back or, cutting out alcohol entirely.
The Great Moderation, very interesting. Clearly, I'm out of that generation, but it is very interesting indeed. And I've done dry January 2 years in a row. The first year, you're like, ooh, okay. It's kind of a reset into the new year. And by the end of it, you do realize, even if you're not a regular drinker, I'm not a regular drinker, but you do kind of realize how that adds up very quickly. When you talk about budgets, how going out to drink does add up. Those drinks, $20, $30 a pop, it adds up quick.
It absolutely adds up quick. And I think, that's the interesting thing, right? Is that this is a long-term trend. It's over a decade where people have been moderating their drinking. But I think when, with the current affordability issues and people trying to navigate that, that's just the cherry on top. If you already made the decision to quit drinking and you're seeing your friends go out to the bar and spend, like you said, $20, $30 a pop on a drink, and you've, cut back, that's great. That's almost cemented your decision to quit drinking or to cut back on drinking. And what we found elsewhere in this report was really interesting was that younger Americans, especially Gen Z, have moved from the bars, right, to the gyms, right? They go from the bar stool to the barbells, and it's probably for that reason alone, or it's at least impacted by that reason, is that a monthly gym membership is significantly cheaper than going to the bar every weekend. So they're still craving those experiences, they're still craving that socialization, but maybe one with more healthier options. So they're socializing at the gym instead of the bar.
Joe, I love that bar stool to the barbells. Okay, Gen Z. Is it kind of a transference of funds, like you were spending $200 on drinks out with friends on a particular Saturday night, but now you're spending more in these other areas? Or you mentioned there may be a bit of a savings in some area, but are they really saving or are they just transferring money into new things?
That's a great point, and it's very possible. I mean, when we looked at like Gen Z spending on fitness, it's up over 9% year over year. That's 3 times the rate of their spending at bars. So it could be that they're just choosing, to spend that money elsewhere. But given what we're seeing, everything, everywhere else when it comes to navigating affordability issues, we've seen what we're calling a lot of trade downs, right? We're seeing younger people or lower income households spending less on rent. And it's not because rental prices are falling, it's because they're trading down to less expensive units. They're going to less expensive grocery stores. So I think it follows that consumers are also choosing maybe less expensive gyms, so they're choosing to go for a run. They're truly just opting out of drinking and choosing healthier options instead, and not necessarily, spending all of that budget on something else. They could be pocketing it.
More moderation as a whole. Yeah, I think it would be a really good study. And I'm always interested in numbers in terms of generational wealth and how is this particular generation saving for the future versus another generation that may have learned things differently. So is this generation actually saving more than the generation before? I would be very interested in finding that out. I know that's not your area to do all the research on, but I just, as I'm sitting here, I'm like, I just wonder, what does this say about Gen Z in terms of their saving habits, not just their spending habits?
That's a great question. I think this definitely has multiple implications for some years to come. I mean, again, this is driven mostly by younger Americans. In fact, when we look at our data, the spending on gyms is outpacing spending at bars for Gen Z and millennials alone. But Gen X, baby boomers, traditionalists, they're spending more at bars than they are at fitness. So this has multiple implications, but especially for the alcohol industry over the next 5 to 10 years. And I think what we're seeing is that a lot of bar owners or retailers are really rising to meet this changing consumer trends. Again, this is an over a decade change in moderation. So really, savings rates, but also just, small business owners are really going to have to rise and meet consumers where they are. In fact, our word for 2026 is adaptability. And I think that's key here. Not only are consumers going to have to be adaptable, find better ways to save, but also businesses are going to have to be adaptable and kind of meet Gen Z where it is, especially over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, really important there. Adaptability on both sides of things. And I would also wonder about the celebrity or the social media influence of it all. Do you see more influencers who are in the fitness space having that type of influence on Gen Z? But then at the same time, I'm thinking social media is essentially like people's highlight reels. Do they also see people out at bars and things more on social media? I wonder the influence of those various things.
Absolutely. That's a great question. I think it's three-pronged, right? Not only do you have influencers, but also people are turning to social media, and it's just, they're really driving these changes in trends, and they're seeing that on social media. It's more socially acceptable to moderate or quit drinking, right? And I think trends like Dry January allow for you to talk with your friends about cutting back on alcohol or just cutting out entirely. So again, you could socialize by being sober, and that's really an interesting new movement. And I think finally, when we look at social media, it also, it's also allowed for more prevalence of information and these health trends. And that's really being adopted by Gen Z and millennials. And that's probably why you see them cutting back so much.
This is all really interesting. I mean, what is maybe another aspect of this that kind of even caught you all off guard or surprised you all in doing this research?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a father of 3, so I've already cut back on alcohol, but I thought that was unique to me. So I think the thing,
father of 3 tells me it would drive you to alcohol. No.
Yeah, but 3 under 3, so I can't be bothered to do anything that's going to make me a little bit slower, right? But I think finding that wasn't unique. I'm a millennial, and we saw that millennial spending on bars was actually decreasing, right? It's one of the few groups that's actually decreasing. So the fact that this is a movement, spending is at a near 40 year lows, the lowest point in nearly 4 decades. So finding that, it wasn't just me that was cutting back. It's this entire generation, or these 2 generations that are cutting back, and it's really impacting this industry. And it's having, again, it's going to have to be something where people really learn to adapt and to these changing generations, over the next decade.
Mm-hmm. And so, doing what you do, I mean, being a research author for the Bank of America Institute, like, you do this research. One, give us a general idea of how you do it, and then after you've done this, what do you move on to studying next?
Right. So how we do it is we just have access to this huge data set that's unparalleled, right? It's unmatched. And we get to see different spending trends for different categories. And I just happen to stumble upon the fact that spending, I mean, when you look at alcohol spending, especially at retailers, you think like liquor, wine, and beer stores, it's down 5% year over year, and it has been for the past 2 years. And that just really caught my eyes. Could have believed that, spending in this industry has been declining so much, and near 40-year lows. And, I think this kind of like plays into these long-term trends, these underlying trends of people not only getting healthier, but also, finding unique and different ways to navigate this affordability issues, finding different ways to save money and stay within their budgets. And that's what we're talking about a lot.
Very interesting for sure. Thank you so much for your time today, and for sharing a little bit more into the insight for us into Gen Z.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.
All right, take care. 1:42, everyone. We're back in 2 minutes. All right, welcome back, everyone. It's about 1:45 right now. We're waiting on our next guest to join us on the line here. He leads the Chicago Project on Security and Threats. He's also the author of Bombing to Win. That is a study of every bombing campaign since World War I. So you can understand why we would want his voice being a part of the discussion as to what is happening right now in this military campaign that's happening there in Iran from the U.S. and Israel. The things that we're looking to ask him about are obviously the airstrikes, but also do airstrikes lead to diplomatic changes? Do they actually result in regime changes? You know, for so long, we heard from the Trump administration that they weren't looking for regime change, that this was going back to last summer, that the operation that took place midnight, the midnight operation that took place, that it was about eliminating the nuclear possibility for Iran. And then there was discussion about the fact that, there was a belief, or that there was some type of concealed information that maybe they were trying to ramp up after that attack. President Trump said it was obliterated in that attack, but that they were trying to ramp up very quickly and restore their nuclear capabilities, and maybe they were just within weeks of having at least 10 bombs that would be ready. All of that now being examined again. We saw an operation that was 12 days over the summer, and now we're looking at a war that has engulfed a whole region, as Iran has responded by sending out strikes on pretty much everything in the region. Qatar didn't have anything to do with this initial conflict, but now it does. Or the UAE didn't have anything to do with the initial conflict, but now it does. All of these countries that now have to weigh for themselves, okay, do we engage because now we're on the defense, or does this kind of blow over for us? But then in the midst of all of that, for America, we're looking at losing service members without a timetable. 12 days last summer, but now the president says initially could be 4 or 5 weeks. Then we heard could be longer. We heard we will for sure take some casualties. Now we're already at 6 lives lost. Will there be more? The president says very likely. The general in charge says they're very likely. And so, when you think about timetables here, that becomes a part of the discussion as well. And then what comes next? What happens after the bombing? What happens? Does Iran go back to what it was before the bombing started? Is the nuclear capability decimated, never comes back? Is there some type of, regime change that actually turns into something productive for U.S.-Iranian relations in the future? There's just so much that's up in the air right now. What we know at this point in time is that U.S. embassies are under fire. We know that the U.S. government has asked for all Americans to get out of the Middle East immediately. In fact, they've set up some helplines and things of that nature for people who may be stuck there. Our own Tia Ewing yesterday spoke with a pastor and his wife that were vacationing, I believe, in Dubai. That, all of a sudden, like they went on vacation and now you're in the middle of a war. So that would be another one of the countries where they weren't a part of it initially, but now they are. It's another one of the places where the U.S. government is saying, depart now if you are an American, and also giving this opportunity for non-emergency personnel to get out. Israeli troops are now in Lebanon as well. That's another country that's now a part of it. So again, started U.S., Israel, Iran. Lebanon is now a part of the overall campaign here, with the Israeli military and their forces now operating on the ground there, and that's a big question for us as well. Will we at some point in time transition from airstrikes to boots on the ground? That is a big question. That is a fundamental shift in the operation, and it, there are different outcomes on many fronts that come from boots on the ground, and where we have seen maybe 6 lives lost thus far. Does boots on the ground escalate that in great number? We shall see. You have people calling for, and we've even seen rallies that have been here where people have said, give us a timetable. They don't want a forever war. There's even that question about war, just the word war. Is it a military campaign or war, because if it's war, then that was supposed to go through Congress for approval. So, so many questions, and we're bringing in now Chicago Professor Robert Pape to maybe get a few answers. Thank you so much for your time. Okay, no, I thought that he was here. He's still not here. So let's just take a look at some of the senators who are speaking right now. We do believe that the full Congress, is supposed to be briefed today on the war in Iran. This is Virginia Senator Tim Kaine who is speaking right now. We're going to listen into this for a bit.
By interventionism, endless wars, regime change, and nation building. What? Toppled one government to arrest their leader, assassinated the leader of another government. That's not intervention? That's not regime change? That's not nation building? They're breaking their promises, just like they're breaking their promises, as Senator Murray and Senator Schumer talked about, to bring costs down for everyday folks. And these are connected. When you use your money to wage war, you take money away from other priorities. When you wage a war that raises energy prices that are already too high, you're hitting people who are dealing with health care costs up, housing up, food up, groceries up, energy costs up. It's time for the president to keep promises, not break them. That's why I'm so glad that we're going to put everybody on the record tomorrow. Nobody gets to hide and give the president an easy pass or an end run around the Constitution. Everybody's got to declare whether they're for this war or against it. That will be the vote tomorrow. I appreciate leadership helping us get it scheduled at a time when everybody can vote and be held accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Yes.
The Republicans say that Democrats can fund DHS ASAP in light of all of this. What is an update on your conversation with the White House?
Well, first of all, it's very easy for them to get all of this funded. Simply to agree to our common sense proposals on ICE and Border Patrol. These are proposals, what we've asked for is what every police force does. In terms of our negotiations, look, we're still far apart, but we're still negotiating and exchanging paper back and forth. Yes. He's our war powers expert.
There are some members of the Democrats that are concerned about that.
Look, people ought to grapple hard with war questions. I mean, we shouldn't be at war without a debate and vote. That was what the framers intended. We protect our troops when we do it the right way.
So again, full Congress expected to be briefed today. Senator Kaine is actually bringing forth a vote for the War Powers Act, and that is what these senators are speaking about. That should happen tomorrow, as they have mentioned there. They do believe that all of these issues, the issues that they were pushing for prior to this campaign in Iran, and certainly now that we are in an active war in Iran, that all of it's connected in many different ways, even when it comes to the issues of affordability for people. When you look at some of the things, gas prices or things of that nature that are soaring right now, that, well, if you were already seeing gas, grocery prices or health insurance or things like that go up, are you willing to be okay with money going overseas now for this, that it's all connected in some type of way? So again, he's bringing forward a vote for the War Powers Act coming up tomorrow. Now, I do believe that we have Chicago Professor Robert Pape with us now. Thank you so much for being here.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
You are such a wealth of information, have been for quite some time when it comes to these types of things. So let me just first get your opinion of how things have gone over the last 2 to 3 days.
Not well. We are in the grip of an escalation trap. President Trump is up against the weight of history, not just simply Iran. For over 100 years, states have been trying to topple regimes with air power alone. And in over 100 years, and I'm choosing my words carefully, it has never worked. dozens and dozens of efforts. My book, Bombing to Win, I cover every air campaign since World War I have a new Substack called The Escalation Trap. You will see lots and lots of analyses that will provide absolutely stunning detail and frameworks to understand that this just has never worked, and for very good reason. When before the bombs fall, you have a two-actor game between the society and the regime. And societies often don't like their governments. So right now, most Americans don't like President Trump. But when a foreign government comes in and bombs, when it attacks, it changes that game. And it becomes a three-actor game. And in fact, the bombing by the foreign country creates nationalism, which tends to bring the regime and the public even closer together. And that tends to then create options and opportunities for the government to lash back in ways. And in the smart bomb age, it's been on for 30 years now. Iran knew we were going to decapitate its leaders. It had a plan called Mosaic. It has adopted that plan. Not at all surprised the supreme leader is killed and about 49 others. And so what you are seeing is preparations by the weaker side, Iran, fully understanding the smart bombs coming at it. But then on the American side, what we did is we sort of got mesmerized by that tactical success. The idea that we would certainly kill the leader. The idea that we would certainly bomb the target tactically. Well, that tactical bombs can crater, they can kill leaders, but that isn't the same as strategic success. And that's what we're finding out now in spades.
You know, let's go back to January when we saw the protesters who were begging for regime change there in Iran, and they wanted President Trump to take some type of action to help, quote unquote, save them. Is this tantamount to that?
Well, it's actually quite worse than that. That you have the history right, but let me just add a few details. President Trump went on the air and publicly said, "We got your back," and then we did nothing. Well, thousands, we don't know, 3,000. Iran says, Trump says 30,000. Were butchered in the streets while we did nothing. So now when he calls just a few days ago for these same groups to go back to the streets, you got to really wonder how many are actually going to do this again.
And when you use words like win or worked, you know, how we win or what works, I feel like that's still... There's so many questions surrounding what are we even doing? What is the ultimate goal here before you can assess what is a win or what worked?
That's right. So from the public's perspective, they've been blindsided. This is just the next weekly war from Trump based on the public's perspective. Remember, we started with Venezuela, then it was Greenland, then it was the war in Minneapolis. Now we have the war in Iran. So from the public side, they're just, of course, completely confused. However, with the Iran issue, I think that following this very, very closely, as I have, there really are two goals here. One is to stop the progress Iran is making on a nuclear weapon. And you'll recall back in June, President Trump, he attacked Fordo, this installation, said he had obliterated not just Fordo, but the entire nuclear program. Well, now he admitted that that's not true. So he's definitely admitted that's false. And that's why he's worried they'll get a bomb. The second thing is he's now said he wants to actually take down the structure of the regime, to literally not just kill leaders, but take down the whole regime. This is just, these are just, the reason it feels so like illusionary is not because the goal's not clear, it's because the goal itself is an illusion. Donald Trump himself has said he would never adopt that as a goal for Iran. He said that over and over and over again in running for president, multiple times. So the bottom line here is that it's understandable why the public's confused, but there are two goals on the table, and neither one we've made no progress in June or now on either stopping Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, no progress, or regime change. And this is really just stunning that we're going down this road with so little to really show for it.
So we were just listening moments ago to Senator Kaine, who's getting ready to introduce this, vote for the War Powers Act. How do you even see that aspect of it, that we are in fact using words like war, but there was no approval from Congress. So is this a military campaign? Is it an attack? But the president himself, the Secretary of Defense or actual Secretary of War now, they've used the word war.
That's right. It's because of the following reason. We've passed the threshold where even if we decide to walk away tonight, we're not ending this conflict. So we did walk away in June. President Trump declared victory, walked away, got involved in all kinds of other things. That option is just not there anymore because Iran is now asserting the initiative. And we have been caught by surprise. We shouldn't have been, but we have been caught by surprise. And the biggest surprise is not the drones. The biggest surprise is America has lost control of the war. And so what you see with Congress is they want nothing to do with this war because it's not just a loser. It is the case that we're losing control of the war. And that's really the danger zone we're in now. So this off-ramps that President Trump has talked about, these are just delusions. He can decide he wants an off-ramp. He can call for negotiations, but each of the last 2 times he's called for negotiations, he has bombed the negotiators. So how many times are those negotiators going to show up when we just keep killing them? So this is just not going to happen. Iran said they're not going to do it, and who can really blame them at this point? Why show up if you're just going to become a target for a bomb?
I mean, the Iranian prime minister did say that, like we thought we were making progress here, but President Trump did have a hard line when it came to no nuclear capability, and they didn't believe that Americans should be able to tell them what to do with their nuclear program.
So what does that mean? So President Trump said this will go on for 4 or 5 weeks. So imagine we bomb for 4 or 5 weeks, and we still have no idea where that enriched uranium is. There's 1,000 pounds of 60% enriched uranium that was there in June before we bombed Fordo. It's still there now. There's 10,000 pounds of 5% and 20% enriched uranium. We don't know where a single ounce of that material is, and we don't know today any more than we knew last Friday, any more than we knew the day after we bombed Fordo. So what's going to happen in 4 or 5 weeks when we go through this, and let's say that we kill, 300-400 liters, maybe even 1,000 liters, and then we say, well, we said we'd stop after 4 weeks, but what do we really get for all this? You see what I mean? Where's this actually going? This is the really big problem of the escalation trap. We are now in the grip of an escalation trap, a demand pull to keep going. And it's no longer just at the whim of the President of the United States, because there really is that enriched material in Iran. And God forbid they take some of it and start to put it on the nose cones of those drones, and you have radiological bombs hitting Riyadh. These are not kind of crazy ideas.
Yeah, I mean, they've already demonstrated that they've been able to get to European assets that maybe people didn't think that they would be before. When you talk about kind of this round and round we go, it seems like, is there a way to finish this or to achieve a goal without boots on the ground?
So President Trump is now on the horns of a dilemma, and it's not a good dilemma. He can effectively stop now, try to declare victory again. That may have been what Pete Hegseth was saying yesterday, regime change not the goal. We just want to bomb some targets and walk away. So that may be the idea of we're just going to declare victory and go home. That would be a political price President Trump will have to pay because that will not come cheap. But then there's the alternative, which we just go on for another months, and there's a longer war and an even bigger political price. So there's no golden off-ramp here where President Trump comes out positive in this case. It's a matter of how much he wants to lose. Does he lose a short bit, cut his losses in the short term, move on? Or does he play this out and have much bigger losses and become Lyndon Johnson in 1968, where Lyndon Johnson's political prospects basically completely disappeared when he lost control of escalation in the Vietnam War? Now, I'm not saying President Trump will not get 40% of the votes here, or his party 40% of the votes, Republicans, in the midterms. But the idea that the midterms, you're talking about massive losses now, where you might not just lose the Senate, you could start to imagine 60 votes going to the Democrats being at 60 seats in the Senate, things like that. That's the territory of the long risk. These are the real issues. There's no golden off-ramp anymore. He had that on Friday, where the Iranians said they would make a deal. It was a deal even better than Obama got, and he rejected it. So that's gone.
Well, it's hard to think where we go from here with all of it. And again, there are American troop lives in the middle of it all, just carrying out their orders. Thank you so much for your time. We always appreciate being able to, call on you for your added expertise. Thank you.
Absolutely. Glad to help.
It's 2:06 right now. Our next guest is already on the line. Give us 2 minutes, everyone, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. 2:08 right now. Let's talk about what's going on here in the 2 o'clock hour. We have plenty ahead. We're going to talk a little bit more about the weather outside. I mean, this morning it was a little wet outside in downtown Chicago. Right now, not too bad. I mean, kind of still a cloudy day, but nothing in terms of like a soggy day at all. But we do have more rain in the forecast as we go throughout the week, so we'll talk about that a little bit more later in the hour. You can see there's the 7-day. Well, things just kind of continue to go downhill, but we'll see just how much we can expect in terms of the rain. Just keep your rain gear handy. That's probably the best advice overall. Also, we're going to go to one of our sister stations for an update on what is going on. Today is a big day in the state of Texas. It is election day for the primaries. Keep in mind, Illinois primaries, which is more important for anyone who is here. But the Illinois primaries are coming up March 17th. For Texas, their primaries are today. And I know I'm going to be staying up until late this evening trying to find out where this goes, because it's the first time in a very long time that things have really been consequential for Texas, you know, and so people are really interested in what happens with these primaries, and then of course what then will be the matchup for November. So we'll see how things go today, but we're going to check in with one of our reporters from our sister station in Dallas, Fox 4. That's coming up a little bit later on. We're going to talk about gas prices that are starting to go up already, of course, as a result of the war in Iran. But first, we're going to talk about a topic of conversation that's been top of mind for quite a while now on both sides of the state line for Illinoisans and for those in the Hoosier State as well. And that is where the future home of the Bears will be. I have the mayor of Hammond, Indiana, Thomas McDermott Jr. joining me. Thank you so much for being back on the show. Oh, I think you're muted. Let's try to work on that. I'm not sure if it's on your end or ours, but I know people want to hear what you have to say.
Sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. Listen, we were going to give you the time or on our end. Again, people are tuned in every time you chat right now because this is such a huge moment for both states.
Yeah, it is. It's certainly a big deal. It's probably the biggest economic development project I'll ever work on as the mayor of Hammond. So we've been doing this since the holidays. Mm-hmm. So, and I don't think it's going to be completed anytime soon, but maybe I'll be, surprised. But I have a feeling this is going to go on for probably another month at least.
And you know, the push really initially was for there to be some type of decision made by the end of February. So yes, now we're into March. Tell us where things stand for the state of Indiana. Well, walk us through, and yes, people have been tuned in the entire time, but walk us through the month of February for you all and where things stand now.
Well, you know, Indiana is a Republican state. So it's not very often that the Republican governor and I'm the longest serving mayor in Indiana. I've been mayor for 22 years and I'm a Democrat. So you don't see bipartisanship like we've seen in Indiana over the last couple months. I've been working very closely with Governor Braun, Speaker of the House, Todd Houston, who's a Republican from Fishers, and also Senator Mishler, who's one of the leaders of the Indiana Senate, also a Republican. And they made an offer to the Bears that's a lucrative offer that makes a lot of sense for the Bears in the long run if they choose Hammond as their next location. So it's been a hectic couple months. I want to thank Governor Braun, Senator Mishler, Speaker Houston, and all the members of the General Assembly that put this offer on the Bears' plate. And it's making them think long and hard about where their future home is going to be.
Mm-hmm. The last time we took a press conference where you were talking after the bill had started to move forward out of committee and it started to move forward. And I mean, you were pretty emotional about it even getting to this point. Does that shock you that it's even gotten to this point?
You know, it's 2026 and this country is as divided as I've ever seen it. I'm 57 years old. So to see bipartisanship the way I've seen it, it makes you emotional. I mean, Governor Braun doesn't have to do what he's doing right now to redevelop my city. I mean, he could have easily been like a lot of people in DC and said, nope, I'm not going to help out a Democratic mayor. And I give him a lot of credit because, you know, he pushed hard for a Democratic city and he made a great offer on behalf of the state of Indiana. And if we're so lucky to be chosen as the Bears' next location, it'll be monumental for the city of Hammond. It'll be monumental for the Bears. And I think the fans are going to love it as well because it's going to be a better fan experience for them as well.
Bipartisanship is indeed a beautiful thing. Taxes, not so much. And people have started to kind of look at, okay, what is the affordability aspect of this for people in Indiana if it becomes a thing? What do you say to folks who are starting to kind of look at those numbers and question?
Well, I mean, state of Indiana is putting up $1.5 billion and they want to get paid back. And I understand that. And if I thought we were being treated differently than other parts of the state, I'd be yelling the loudest. But I watched how Indiana worked out the deal with the Colts to build Lucas Oil Stadium, and this statute, the Bears bill, was modeled almost word for word after the Colts bill in Lucas Oil Stadium. So, it got Colts Stadium built. It'll get the Bears Stadium built. And the best part, in my opinion, is it's the actual people that are going to use the stadium that'll pay for it. This isn't going to fall on the general taxpayer as long as they never participate and go to the stadium
And you said that the overall experience, you expected the overall experience would be better in Hammond than some of the other locations, i.e. Arlington Heights. How so?
Well, it's, let's say you live downtown in Chicago. We're closer with traffic. We're closer. We're a bike ride away from downtown Chicago. You can't say that about Arlington Heights. You could get from downtown Chicago to Wolf Lake in 20 minutes by car. You could get there within an hour if you're riding a bike. And Arlington Heights could be 2 hours away from the south side of Chicago, which is where I live. It could be a 2-hour drive. And there's a lot of people that live on this side of Chicago that won't go to Arlington Heights. It's too far away. There's people in Chicago that feel the same way. I think nobody wants to see the Bears leave Soldier Field, but if they're going to leave Soldier Field, if they choose Hammond as their next location, we're going to be closer to downtown Chicago than if they chose Arlington Heights.
Mm-hmm. Now, initially, when the bill was kind of moving through, there was that excitement, that initial excitement, like, yeah, this is happening for Indiana. It seemed like that day that the Bears sent out a message that was like, oh, this very well may be it. After that, though, it was like, okay, pump your brakes.
Mm-hmm.
Arlington Heights is still in play. Ending the month without a deal. Did it make you question whether you're going to be the pick in the end? Or are you still hopeful?
I'm definitely hopeful. And I think it makes tons of sense financially for the Bears to choose Indiana. But I also know this is a big deal. The Bears have been in Chicago from the beginning. Just leaving Chicago is a big decision. Leaving the state of Indiana is an even bigger decision. So I understand this is a tough decision the Bears are going to make. If they choose Hammond, Indiana, they're going to do very well here. But, it's a big decision to make, and I understand that. And I think at this point, we're just sort of giving the Bears their space. I'm not sure what they're thinking. I can't speak on behalf of the team, but I'm sure they're interested to see what Illinois puts on the table. And that's probably not going to be until early April at the soonest. So I don't expect this. If I was the Bears, I would want to see both offers and compare them. And if Illinois is close, who knows? Maybe the Bears choose Arlington Heights. But I don't think that Illinois is going to be able to match the deal Indiana put together. And even if they did match it, I don't think it's good for the Bears over the next 30 or 40 years to trust, no offense, Illinois government. That things aren't going to break down in year 10 and they're going to be paying $15 to $20 million a year in taxes. They want that certainty, and they have that in Indiana. They don't have that in Illinois.
That is a big statement indeed. Okay, so we don't have a timetable right now that we're working with. How long do you think you all in Indiana kind of stays in wait-and-see mode?
That's a good question. I mean, I know the governor is the one that's calling the shots right now. The legislature put the offer on the table. They formalized it, and they bang the gavel. They're out of session until the end of the year. So the offer that's been made by the state of Indiana is a great offer. It's been certified by the General Assembly, and I imagine it's Governor Braun at this point that's going to decide when we've had enough, if we've had enough, or if we're going to keep waiting for the Bears to say yes.
Mm-hmm. And is it possible, just possible, that let's say the Bears stay on the Illinois side of things, that you could get some other type of team out of this deal that has been struck there?
Well, this is an interesting question. Obviously I'm focused on the Bears right now, but I've heard a lot of White Sox fans asking if we're interested in, talking to Mr. Reinsdorf about moving the team. But I can tell you right now in Hammond, we're focused on the Bears. We're focused on Bearsville. We're focused on making this entire city all about the Chicago Bears and welcoming the fans from all over to come to Northwest Indiana for the games. If they stay in Chicago and they come, God bless. It's a great city. I don't blame them.
Okay. Mayor Thomas McDermott Jr., thank you so much for joining me
It's nice
today.
to see you again. Thank you
I
for
hope
being-
it's not our last time speaking.
No,
Who
ma'am.
knows where things will be by the next time.
Okay, thank you.
All right, take care.
You
It's
too.
2:20 right now, and it is just, it's such a tense time when you're just kind of holding it in this mode of like, what is going to happen? But we just got to continue to hold out. It did not get done by the end of February as the team was, at least they stated that they were hoping when the year started, like they wanted something in hand by the end of February. But kicking the can down the road just a bit. We'll see how long and how far and where things end up in the end. Who gets the touchdown? We'll see. All right, 2:20, and we're going to move on to our next discussion. Our next guest is already on the line. We were speaking just a short while ago about the war in Iran and all of the different implications that are attached to it, whether it's the actual combat, the airstrikes there, what that means for whether we end up having boots on the ground, how long, we're just talking about a timetable, what the timetable could look like for this operation that's happening there, but also the economic aspect of it. In fact, gas prices, oil, the cost of oil. Let's talk about it a little bit more with Gas Buddy. Patrick DeHaan is joining me now. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, you've been monitoring this very closely. What are we seeing today when it comes to oil production?
Well, not a whole lot from U.S. oil production, but oil prices is where all the fireworks have been as a result of the U.S. attacking Iran. Iran essentially de facto shutting down the Strait of Hormuz by issuing threats that any tankers that sail through or transit the Strait of Hormuz may be attacked. 20% of the world's oil supply does flow through the Strait of Hormuz. And as a result, this choke point has essentially been shut down. And a lot of that oil now is not making it to where it needs to go. As a result, the price of oil has jumped significantly. And that's having a very quick turnaround on gas prices across the country, Chicagoland included. The national average yesterday saw its fourth largest single day increase on record going back to 2005. So it's hitting us pretty quickly across much of Chicago. Gas prices yesterday, as a result, jumped up to $3.49 at many stations, and they'll probably continue inching higher in the days ahead.
Wow. Well, and what was the cause in 2005? Take us back so we understand the nexus of how or why, what would cause a jump this significant?
Yeah, back in 2005, the largest ever single day jump was right after Hurricane Katrina made landfall, destroyed much of the Gulf Coast, unmooring oil infrastructure, destroying refineries, and that brought with it a tremendous surge. If you look at the top 5 jumps, the single day largest jumps, they're all when something significant has happened to the scale of Hurricane Katrina. The second largest was ahead of Russia's invasion of Ukraine or shortly thereafter. The national average jumped 16 cents a gallon in March of 2022. And actually, gas prices yesterday made the largest single day jump since 2022 and the fourth largest on record. So all of those biggest movers, hurricanes, wars, things of those nature. We're kind of seeing that across the country. And not only that now, but diesel prices moving up even more dramatically than gasoline. The average price for diesel now moving beyond the $4 mark. And though you may fill your tank with gasoline, when you go to the grocery store, when you're buying online, a lot of those goods are influenced by the price of diesel. So somewhat of a double whammy. Absolutely.
Our farmers get hit quite hard when it comes to that. And obviously moving the produce and whatnot around. So some people will ask about the interconnectivity of this. When we're seeing something overseas happening and how that hits us here at home, how shutting down the Strait of Hormuz can then affect our gas prices here at home. Can you talk to that?
Well, any imbalance to supply and demand, whether or not it's in the Middle East or the United States, we're a major oil producer too, and our extremely cold weather in the middle of winter can shut down oil production in the United States, and that can have a ripple effect on the price of oil globally. But we are all connected very much together as a global economy, we can't just isolate ourselves from these types of major implications. And again, this is from a oil production standpoint, Iran is a smaller producer. It's more the focus on the Strait of Hormuz. That is all of what is happening here. It's not so much the loss of Iran's oil production. A lot of that oil production already has been heavily sanctioned. The market's focused specifically now on essentially the closure of the Strait of Hormuz because oil can't get to where it needs to go. And now that is backing up. Iraq is actually shutting down oil production because it has nowhere for that oil to go. Qatar shutting down natural gas production because it has nowhere for it to go. And all of that really having a major ripple effect. So, you know, when you talk about energy infrastructure, the Strait of Hormuz is almost more important than a country like the United States, because while we produce 13 million barrels of oil a day, 20 or 25 million barrels of oil a day can't get to where it needs to go. That's almost more critical than us being the world's largest oil producer.
Wow, wow. Thank you for laying that out. I think it really helps us when you kind of break it down in the way that you just did there. And do you, I mean, we talked about, like, okay, when you go to the grocery store, how that could translate. Do you think maybe even, the cost of flights could go up?
Well, a lot of the time, flights and airlines reprice airfares on a bit of a longer curve, meaning that this action is only a couple of days in. Fuel is a major cost for operators. They may look at adjusting airfares in a small amount, but thankfully the increases are not yet massive when it comes to adjustments in airfares. Typically, airlines may, over the course of several quarters, adjust their fuel prices. If these high prices stick around for more than a quarter of the year, they'll start to look at and identify trends. They're probably tinkering with summer airfares right now, looking to recapture what they believe could be a higher price. But even the situation in the Middle East today, we don't really know how long it's going to last. So airlines are probably not fully reassessing fuel prices for the summer, hoping that this will die down, and it very well may. But I'm sure they're very anxious over how long this will stick around. And the president has already said this is not going to be a very short incursion. This could last several weeks. That probably has airlines on edge. So, you're probably not going to see a huge increase in airfare either way just yet. Airlines are going to wait and see to really determine how quickly they're going to increase fares and how dramatically those fares need to go up.
There's a lot of anxiety to go around. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you weighing in.
Thanks for having me.
All right, take care. It's 2:27, everyone. Give us 2 minutes and we'll be back. right, everyone, welcome back. It's about 2:30 right now. We're going down to the Lone Star State for our next question, or question and answer period here. Stephen Dial is joining me from our sister station in Dallas. Thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
Okay, so Stephen, I don't know the last time people said the balance of the Senate hangs on the state of Texas. I mean, it's not a state that you typically look for when it comes to these types of things. But this Senate race is major this year, and the primaries are today.
Yes, and this is the most expensive Senate race in primary history, like history ever. More than $120 million has been spent on this race, and it's because a lot of money has been spent on the Republican side. The incumbent, Senator John Cornyn, has been in office since the early 2000s. He's seeking a fifth term in office, and the sitting Attorney General of Texas is challenging him. He's been leading in all of the polls over Senator Cornyn. And then you have a third candidate, Wesley Hunt, who's a member of Congress from the Houston area, also running. And so this likely will head to a May runoff. A ton of money being spent, and not to mention we actually have a competitive race on the Democratic side. That's what's making things so different here this year in this midterm election, is because not only is the Republican side competitive with some big names, but then Jasmine Crockett, I mean, she is a household name in Democratic circles with her going viral, sparring with Republicans. And then James Tallarico, who's a state representative from Texas, who has just risen to stardom in the last several months.
Yeah, I was looking at videos last night of some of the final rallies. I have a few questions where that's concerned, but let me start with why you feel President Trump is not weighing in on any of this.
Well, you know, you don't want to upset someone who you may need a vote from soon. So Senator Cornyn, you know, if we go back to 2020, Senator Cornyn, like a lot of Republican lawmakers, were critical of President Trump and saying that the Republican Party has passed him. And now that President Trump is back in office, they're all buddy-buddy with him again right now. And so it's strategic. I mean, the president, if John Cornyn happens to win, the president doesn't want to endorse his opponent, and then Cornyn is the person who you need to vote from when it matters most, if the Senate has a razor-thin majority. And so I think it's a matter of people in the president's ears saying don't wade in just yet, but we are pretty certain that he likely will endorse if and when this goes to a runoff. I think when it's down to a final two candidates, he may jump in the race.
Okay, and that has been the big thing. What will the matchup look like? And there's been so much conversation around, you know, it's almost like you know, a March Madness, you know, or where what would this matchup look like, and what comes from this? I mean, it's really gotten very interesting.
Yeah, it is, and I mean. The third candidate, Wesley Hunt, he has told me and other reporters he's not playing spoiler. He believes that there is a path for him. The polls have not shown that, but we'll have to see when the returns come in tonight. He believes there's a path for him because he is the youngest candidate in this race. He's in his early 40s. He's been very critical of John Cornyn. Hasn't been as much critical as to the front-runner Attorney General Ken Paxton, who comes with a lot of baggage. That's why a lot of money is being spent in this race, because the National Republicans, the National Senate Republican Committee is backing John Cornyn, so they are throwing money left and right at this because the Attorney General has survived being impeached by the Texas House, so impeached by Republicans who once supported him. He was acquitted in the Senate. He has been indicted on charges that were since dealt with. His own staff members have blown the whistle on him for improper actions in office. And so he's weathered all of this, come with all of this baggage. And then right as he gets ready to run for U.S. Senate, him and his wife divorced. And it was a nasty divorce. And his wife happens to be a lawmaker as well. She's a state senator here in Texas. So he has all this baggage. And so some national Republicans think if he is the nominee, it will make Democrats very happy and will make them think that this race can be winnable in November.
Yeah, that goes back into how these matchups are being talked about in terms of who Republicans would like to see their nominee go against versus who Democrats would hope to see on the other side. So you mentioned Democrats would really like to see Ken Paxton because this, even just the Republican primary has gotten so messy. But what about the flip? Who are Republicans hoping, who's their dream opponent?
Yeah. So like you just said, the Democrats' dream opponent is Ken Paxton because he comes with all the baggage. On the flip side, the Republicans' dream opponent is Jasmine Crockett, and it's because they believe that she is the type of Democratic candidate that can rally up the Republican base when it comes time to show out in November. Now, again, Crockett is known for viral moments. She's not known for holding her tongue, and so Republicans think that they can capitalize on that. Some of them have been starting to focus on James Tallarico, who, he injects religion in a lot of his messaging, trying to appeal to Republicans and some Trump supporters. But Republicans are already looking up things that he said on the House floor in years past about religion, like his comment saying that, quote, God is non-binary. They're going to start using that message against him if he is the nominee. But Republicans want to see Jasmine Crockett. Democrats want to see Ken Paxton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so what do you think the chances are there on the Democratic side? I mean, you mentioned, listen, President Trump's kind of waiting to see, all right, who, even if there's a runoff, who kind of prevails before he steps in. But we have seen the former vice president step into the ring on Jasmine Crockett's behalf. I mean, who has the momentum here in these final moments?
Yeah, so, the Kamala Harris news, the former vice president news, it's crazy how, in years past that would have been like huge news and talked about for a long time. It was mentioned and then people kept moving. Here in Texas, these polls, Texas is a huge state, but typically the polls are kind of aligned with each other. And this week and last week, the polls have been all over the place. One day a poll will come out and have Crockett up double digits, then another poll the next day will have Tallarico up double digits. So we really are uncertain with these polls. And some people just don't believe in polls in general and want to wait to see those numbers. With all that said, Tallarico definitely has the momentum. He's drawing larger crowds. He's drawing younger crowds. Jasmine Crockett said when she got in this race that she believes on her ground game and not as much as spending a bunch of money on TV ads. She is airing ads now, but Tallarico, from the second he got in, we started seeing campaign ads over and over and over. He has outspent her like 10-1. She's admitted that. But she believes her name ID is known enough, especially in Texas where she lives, that people will know who she is. And she thinks that is why they'll vote for her, because they've seen her fighting, in her words, for the state of Texas and seeing James Tallarico as a newcomer. But he definitely has momentum heading into tonight.
Yeah. What is the conversation like right now that a Democrat even has the possibility of being competitive in the state of Texas for the Senate, and that this seat is so consequential right now for the midterms?
Yeah. I mean, so we all know history shows that the incumbent party, the occupant of the White House, his party typically has losses during the midterm. I mean, it happens to every president. It's just a matter of how bad does it happen. And so the House in Congress already has a razor-thin majority. And so experts are saying, regardless of what happens in Texas, they believe that Republicans will lose the House. The Senate is a little bit bigger, but still everything is unknown. The reason why Texas is being talked about so much, one, this is the first real midterm test nationwide of what is an unpopular president. A Fox News poll out the week of the State of the Union showed that President Trump had a less than 50% favorability rating. It showed that more than 60% of Americans feel that the economy still is not good. And so with an unpopular president, there's going to be a lot of focus and a lot of energy on, okay, when will we start to see those chips being made? And so because Texas, we have the luxury of being the first real big primary happening, a lot of people are wondering. And turnout has been a huge thing. Democrat turnout, we had about 10 days of early voting. Over 1.5 million Democrats turned out to vote. Total voters was about 2.2 million. So Democrats outvoting Republicans by about 250,000. But in places like here in Dallas County, Jasmine Crockett's home county, we saw record numbers of early voting. More than 187,000 Democrats turned out to vote in early voting. That was more than all the total midterm vote was on in 2024 and 2022. You actually have to go back to 2008 early voting, where more than 119,000 Democrats voted, and that was when Barack Obama was on the ballot. Here, of course, more people have moved here since 2008, but 187,000 voting early alone. So that's not even including what we may see today. So there's definitely a lot of energy on the Democratic side. Democrats think that they can flip this state. I'll show my age. It has not happened since I was in kindergarten. So 1994. But they think now is the best time, because if Ken Paxton wins, they think they'll have a more vulnerable Republican candidate.
And you know, when I think about the state of Texas, which is, by the way, my home state, but when I think about the state of Texas, and you have, you know, say Austin, and it's like people keep Austin weird, and it is reliably blue center in the middle of Texas. Right. Where are the Democrats thinking these votes are coming from? Like where are they looking for these votes at this point?
Yeah, and so any Democrat in politics will tell you, and Jasmine Crockett has said it multiple times on the campaign trail, they say that Texas is not a Republican state, it's a non-voting state, which is partially true. When you look at the amount of registered Democrats, even though there are more registered Republicans, if Democrats turned out to vote, then some of these races would start to look different. And the biggest problem that Democrats have had here in Texas is that they are not getting their base out to vote. And so, you know, if there is consistency of Democrats outvoting Republicans like we saw here in this primary, the thing is, the primary, you're just voting for your party. And so Democrats will need to replicate that and really duplicate that in November. They need to outvote Democrats in November. So said all that to say, these large urban areas, you have the Dallas Metroplex, so Dallas and Fort Worth, you have Austin, like you mentioned, San Antonio, and then the big pot is the Houston area. If Democrats can get Democrats or people to vote Democrat in those major urban centers, it'll balance out the numbers that Republicans have been gaining from rural Texas and South Texas. Another thing before we wrap this up, another thing is, you know, Democrats had some huge losses in South Texas. And some in the Hispanic community have said that Democrats have kind of taken them for granted, and some of them voted for President Trump in 2024. And so Democrats have a huge task of, Texas is such a unique state where the Hispanic population is a big chunk of the population, the Black population is a big chunk of the population, that Democrats not only, you know, had losses in 2024, but they lost the Hispanic vote. And so they are trying to make that up. And we'll have to see tonight how the Valley is what they call it, how that part of Texas votes when it comes to this primary.
Well, it's going to be very interesting, and I think, again, it'll be first time in a very long time that the eyes of the nation will really be looking at a primary election in the state of Texas to see where things go from here and what happens after that point in time. I'm sure there will be much more money and many more voices and probably a lot more feisty ads to come. Thank you so much for your time today. Sure. Appreciate it.
No problem.
All right. It's about 2:45, everyone. And let's take a quick break. Give us 2 minutes and we'll be back. Welcome back, everyone. 2:48 right now. Let's take a look at how things are going on the stock market today. By the end of the day yesterday, we saw like a couple of blips of positivity, a couple of blips of green on the screen. Haven't seen 1 inch of green thus far today, and sitting down pretty far, down almost 400 points for the Dow Jones right now. S&P 500 also slipped 0.8% so far. We're also seeing that the NASDAQ has shed 0.9% thus far, and it's kind of a mixed picture here. Equities falling, but also some improved sentiment, and this is coming on the heels of President Trump saying that the Navy will escort tankers through the Strait of Hormuz if necessary. And just a short while ago, think back if you were with us for our conversation with Gas Buddy, they were talking about the Strait of Hormuz and how much oil goes through there. I mean, about 20% of the world production goes through the Strait of Hormuz, which is closed off right now. So President Trump saying the Navy will escort tankers if it comes to that. But that is really the big concern here. At least there's some sentiment that's changing just a bit. Now hearing that President Trump is willing to have the Navy escort tankers if it comes to that. But still so much that's up in the air that we don't know when it comes to how all of that would play out. Again, just haven't seen too much good on the stock market today. Have been sitting in the red all day. Pretty close to it closing, but still not there. So it's still a possibility of maybe seeing a little bit of green before it's all said and done. But just today, a lot of red on the screen here. Materials, industrials, also seeing some big losses as well as those high oil prices, again, because of what's going on with the war in Iran. So with the possibility of this being a prolonged mission, you can expect there's probably going to be more volatility for the market over the next days and weeks to come. The president says that it could be 4 or 5 weeks, may not be that long, maybe longer than that. So what we can likely expect is that in the duration of that time, however long it is, there will be more volatility for the market. All right, let's talk about what's going on in terms of our weather outside. And it's not the worst of conditions today, but you do see those clouds where we saw more sunshine yesterday. And our chief meteorologist, Emily Walls, is here in Studio 32 now. What happened to the sun?
Oh, she gone. She's not here. She's not
gone.
She's not going to be around for a little while. So yesterday obviously was a beautiful day. We had lots of sunshine yesterday, but today, all the way through the end of this week, into this upcoming weekend, we have a chance of rain almost every single day. And it's not going to be a soaker every single day. There's a lot of us that I think are going to get through today without really seeing much more than maybe a couple sprinkles, and that's really about it. And then same thing during the daytime hours of tomorrow, but then we have another storm system coming through Wednesday night into Thursday, another one Friday into Saturday. So while I know it looks very rainy here on the 7-day forecast through Saturday.
It looks like the doldrums looking at that.
It does, but it's, again, I just have to remind you, it's not going to be raining all day long. Just be prepared. Have your umbrellas with you because you don't want to get caught up in one of these showers, right? Temperature-wise, though, not so bad this week. So we really have this spring-like weather pattern that's taking hold. Today's temperatures are expected to be in the low 40s. That's pretty much where we're at right now. And we also have this really light wind flow coming in off of the lake. So you may have noticed from the shot that we had over Lakeshore Drive that there was a little bit of fog out there. And that's going to continue through the day today as well. Now, tomorrow, we're looking at highs that are going to be in the low 40s, mid 40s expected on Thursday. Inland locations may actually end up making it into the 50s on Thursday, but I think closer to the city, certainly closer to the lakefront, we will be running cooler.
Temperature-wise, I like where we're going.
Oh, yeah, we're moving in the right direction here. I think everybody that's looking at the 7-day forecast right now, they're not even listening to what I'm saying about the rain. They're just looking ahead to next Tuesday.
That out, yeah.
Yeah, you're just looking toward next week. So the 60s that we're going to tap into this weekend, we're going to be developing this southerly wind flow, and then that's going to take hold for this weekend into next week. And the overall pattern from, if you look at the Climate Prediction Center, they always put out a 6 to 10 day outlook and an 8 to 14 day outlook. The 6 to 10 day outlook, which is going to take us, I believe, from Monday through Friday of next week, it shows significantly warmer than average temperatures.
And what's average for March?
Average for this time of March is typically in the low 40s. So today it stands at 42, but every 3-4 days or so, that's ticking up by a degree. So we're moving in the right direction. By the end of March, averages are right around 50. So we're getting there. Days are getting longer, averages getting warmer.
And, even as I'm looking at that 7-day, I think about the fact that, okay, not this weekend where we kind of have the mixed picture, okay, but where we're going. When we start to look at next week and the clouds getting out of there,
well,
the rain not being a part of
the
it.
Story.
Oh, clouds are coming back?
Well, the 6 to 10 day outlook looks pretty good. The 8 to 14 day outlook, which is taking us into next weekend, the following week, so the middle of March, may not be as warm.
Well, here's what I was thinking in my head.
You were thinking sunshine.
Well, I was thinking that the St. Patrick's Day parade downtown is not this weekend, but it's the next weekend where we're starting to see those 68s going in that direction.
Yeah, I'm glad you're thinking of it because my goodness, I haven't even thought about that. That's right around the corner. Of course it's March, but I need to get with it these days.
You've got bigger priorities.
Literally bigger priorities. But yes, so we of course do have St. Patrick's Day coming up. But I will say we're overall trending toward a cooler weather pattern by the middle of the month. So it'll be something to watch, but there's plenty of time for things to change, right? You know how much the forecast changes within 5 or 6 days. So as far as the predictability goes for weather, by the way, anything outside of 5 days, you can have an idea of a pattern, but not so much the exact specifics. If you were to track the forecast every single day, that 6th and 7th day that's on the forecast, you're probably going to notice some pretty significant swings in the temperatures usually, and that's just typical. That's where our science is right now. But if you're looking well beyond, it's just trends. So all we can go on when it comes to St. Patrick's Day and looking forward to any festivities that are going on, cooler than average is where we're leaning. But we can hold out for something better.
Now let me bring it back, and I want to ask you: were people actually able to get good pictures of the blood moon?
It was considered a blood moon because it was a full moon that also we had a total lunar eclipse. So there was a lot going on in the celestial world last night. But I haven't seen any great photos locally. We did have the increasing cloud cover, so unfortunately I don't think a lot of local folks were able to see it. But all across the lower 48 we were able to see it. So if you didn't get to see it personally, there's plenty of pictures that are floating around, and it would have looked the same for us. It's not the same as seeing it in person, but yeah, I don't think we got so lucky here.
Okay, and one more question. I was just, scanning headlines and articles this morning before I came to work, and I saw one about the drought in the state of Illinois.
Yes, so it's not so much here for the most part. Throughout the Chicagoland area, actually, it's kind of surrounding the lakefront, rounding the lake into Lake Porter, LaPorte County, we're good. We're in good shape. We're not even considered to be abnormally dry. But as soon as you get about 30 to 40 miles inland from the lake, that's when we really start to see the drought conditions ramping up. And actually downstate, dealing with a severe drought in portions of LaSalle County, which is in our viewing area. Southwestern LaSalle County is considered to be in a severe drought. So we have this really wide ranging of conditions that we're seeing across the region. But we could still use the rain. Rain this week is going to be a really good thing for us, and it does appear like it's going to be favoring areas near and south of I-80
that need it,
which is exactly where we need it. So not a bad thing. But yes, we are dealing with drought conditions across some portions of the Chicagoland area, especially the farther that you get inland from the lake.
Very interesting things going on. So many different factors that you are charged with keeping up with, but we appreciate your work.
Course.
Thank you so much for coming up to Studio 32. Give us 2 minutes. We'll be right back. All right, it's 3:01. Thanks so much for staying with us for our final hour of Chicago Live. If you just tuned in, plenty more to go, so you're in the right place here. We have several conversations that are still to come in this hour before we send you over to First at 4. Before we get out of here, we're going to talk to the cheese champs. Yes, that is a thing. And the top dogs are usually the same top dog, so we'll bring them into the conversation. Also around 3:30, we're going to bring in our own Scott Schneider, who is going to be talking about one of his two favorite topics. A few weeks ago, he was out at McCormick for one of his favorite topics, and that is cars. He loves the whole automotive industry. Today, he's going to be talking about the other major love of his life, and that would be UFOs. So he has a UFO special report that is going to be airing, and we're going to talk to him about who he talked to for this special report, some of the interesting things that he's been able to find out from it. Has it changed his perspective on anything? All of those good things. He's always keeping us in the loop as to when there's new information for that particular topic. Also, we're going to talk about secret food additives, loopholes that companies are still getting away with in order to slide something into our food, and what's being done about it, if anything is being done about it, but at least more awareness is being made at the very least. First, though, I want to start off with a topic that is very close to home for many parents and caregivers in our area of young people who have big dreams of doing the most when it comes to the arts, entertainment industry, and the budget issues that come with supporting schools that really wrap their arms around these kids in a special way. Lisa Miranda is joining me now. She is a Shy Arts parent and a member of the Advisory and Design Leadership Council. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. We're so excited to be able to talk about this and hopefully get CPS to come to the table and work with us for the best of all the kids.
Yeah, when you say come to the table, let's talk about the current state of things. So Shy Arts has essentially acted independently of CPS, and there's a possibility that could change. Is that correct? Did I frame that correctly?
Right. Yeah. Up until this fall, we were a contract school, which is very similar to a charter school in the CPS sort of portfolio. That we were still part of CPS, but we had our own sort of charter to hire our own administrative staff and to do things a little differently than exactly CPS rules. But this fall, our contract operator decided that they could no longer operate the school, and CPS determined that they would like to take us on. I mean, we're a high-performing school, 560 students pulled from across the country, a very unique flagship program. But unfortunately, as things have moved forward, they have not been as supportive of keeping the things that make Shy Arts such a gem, such a great addition to their portfolio. And just we've lost a lot of the communication about how we can move forward to be part of CPS, which we want to be, but also retain why they wanted us in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to continue to be the gym.
Yep.
And let's talk about why you all are a gym, why you are high performing. I have always loved talking to and hearing from both the teachers and also the students, especially from Shy Arts. They shine in a very particular way, and so talk a little bit more about the freedom that has come with operating in the way that you all have for so long.
Yeah, I mean, I invite every single person in Chicago to get a ticket to a Shy Arts show, because you're going to see some passionate, vibrant kids who are being directed by passionate, vibrant artists who are pushing them. My child's in the visual arts department, and they've always been an artist since the time they were 3 years old in Montessori. I would have stacks of their beautiful artwork coming home to me, but to see them really taking that intellectual edge onto things, to hearing them talk about how, how when they draw a picture now, they're thinking about where the viewer is going to look. They're thinking about communicating ideas, not just that they can draw well. When I hear them talk about art now, even though I haven't met some of their teaching artists, even though I haven't met some of their teachers, I know I am hearing exactly what they are learning at Chi Arts, and that's the same for every all of our different conservatories. I mean, Chi Arts is special because it takes kids who have aptitude, who have energy, who want to be artists, who may not have had that opportunity, maybe didn't go to a school that had a nice arts program, maybe don't have a family that can support them in taking what are very expensive courses if it's not provided free by a public school. So it brings people in that have that aptitude, that have that attitude, that have that passion. And then, when you just walk down the hallways, the thing that I got the most out of first touring that school with my child is these are our people. These are our, this is diverse. This is Chicago. These are people who care. These are people who are, they will go to school from 8 to 5. Teenagers go to school willingly 8 to 5 in order to get this sort of an education. I just can't say passion enough. It's the defining characteristic of, the kids, the teachers, the teaching artists, the administration. You can see when people have a real purpose and a real clarity of vision and how they can come together and just make magic. It's just magic.
Mm-hmm. And when we often look at districts throughout the country that end up in, cash-strapped situations, arts, extracurriculars are typically the first to suffer.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. I mean, that there are that the arts are something that we can enjoy throughout our entire lives, whether that's because we follow great artists who hopefully some of these kids are going to grow up to be, or because we just have an appreciation of what makes art. I mean, you can, my 80-year-old mother is still making art. There's not a lot of 80-year-olds still throwing a football. This is something that this is a life that is a dream and a passion and a vocation for some, but it's something that everybody can get something out of.
Mm-hmm. And so how are the students taking this moment? I mean, we just saw a Spiro, and what happened with those schools. So how are the students taking this moment for Chi Arts?
It's hard. I mean, even going into this year, the school has struggled with finances, has struggled to, and I think that CIPS can give us some of the structure that we need to make it a better experience for our students beyond the art to the academic. But it's a rough year. It's hard to go to school and love your school and every day be reminded that it might not be here next year. Or that maybe that my friends might not be next year, that other families may make different decisions, that if we can't get ourselves organized enough to bring in a freshman class, what effect does that have on the school? But at the same time, they're still there now, and they're still creating. I was able to see one of the dance productions last week, Journey of the Brown Tights, which was just astounding to see students learning so much about their history and the history of dance, and then presenting it in a way that is just so immediately enjoyable by everyone watching it. It's they're in a special place and they know that, and they're enjoying that specialness, but they are desperate to hold on to it at the same time.
So what's being proposed in conversations if CPS does end up taking it over?
So, I mean, they are taking it over. We will be a CPS school next year. It's just whether or not we'll be Chi Arts, whether or not we'll be the what we are right now. So we are going to be a CPS school. Some of the things that they are proposing is that we compress our day so that everything happens within 8 to 3 instead of 8 to 5. And that is really I'm sorry to say, just the worst of every possible plan smushed together, because it compresses our arts, it makes it so we have less art courses, it compresses our academics. We will not have as many, we may not have any electives other than art classes. And some of the special electives that Shy Arts have is part of why the students go there too. I mean, having access to AP classes, being able to take 4 years of a foreign language, being able to take really interesting science classes like anatomy and physiology or forensics that, have a dual purpose for artists, because, as a visual artist, my daughter loves to do portraiture, and to have that, that really intense science class that is really focused on, how is our structure made, the muscles, how things are brought together, the placement of our features, that all of that, it all ties together into a very special package. And on top of that, that once we have that compression, we have over 16% of our students are IEP, have an individualized learning plan, and over nearly 9% are the English is their second language. So once you compress a school day in that way, I do not know how they're going to serve our IEPs. I do not know how they're going to serve those English language learners. I don't know how they're going to serve a student who, has a bad semester and fails a class. How are they going to catch back up? There is no wiggle room in the schedule. There's no grace. There's just no grace in it.
So how do you all fight back? I'm seeing that, parents, teachers are protesting these changes. What does that look like?
We are, we're coming together, we're sharing ideas. I mean, I think that the teachers, the teaching artists, and the parents are really aligned. We want to negotiate with CPS. We realize that we're not going to get everything we want, but to really have an understanding from them of what is the purpose of some of the things that they can keep or not keep. For instance, they have told us that they will fully fund a full school day, 8 to 3:15, and then fully fund an after-school program for us. And that boggles my mind, because why is that less expensive than the conservatory program that we have? I don't think it is. I think that, CPS is a big machine. And I understand that standardizing creates efficiencies, but we can't standardize to a point where we are losing some specialness within the schools. There are other special schools within CPS, the EGG school, the selective enrollment programs, there are schools that focus on, diet, or that's an arts program, or the Dawson, who's, is really closely linked with labor unions, doing specialized training for those students. There's a history there. CPS can do this, but we have to convince them that they want to, that they need to, that that this is we're not going away. We love this model. We love our kids. We pick this school very intentionally. It's for a certain student who is that committed to arts. It's the only one, and it's a flagship. And it's nationally recognized. It's a prestigious school to go to. I have friends of my daughters that moved from other states.
Wow.
In order to come to this school. A good friend of mine, they moved from Texas just because they knew. And another friend moved here from another state just because they wanted to give their daughter the opportunity to go to a school like this, and to go to a school like this in Chicago. My goodness, we're a great arts community. Think of our museums, think of our theaters, think of our, Harris School of Dance, everything that's all here. We are bringing in students that are either from here or want to be here, and then we are training them to be the artists that we're going to see working across Chicago for a long, long time. This is a pipeline. This is this is an education, but it's about jobs. It's about getting people to fall in love with Chicago the way we've all fallen in love with Chicago, and to share that with the world through their art.
And you all have some before I let you go, there are some big time alumni who are great representatives of what Shy Arts has poured into them.
Absolutely. I mean, every single conservatory can point to alumni that have, gone on to do incredible things. Grammys, performing with Bad Bunny at the Super Bowl, dancers. It's the list is long, and it's really impressive. It's really impressive. And, I'm not saying that every kid that goes to Shy Arts is going to become a world famous
Sure.
artist. Some of them may, use the skills that they've had to become lawyers or teachers or some other thing. But the arts background will never steer you wrong.
I think that's a good note to leave it on. Please continue to keep us updated on what happens from here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. I truly appreciate the opportunity.
We value your passion. Thank you. It's a 3:17, everyone. We're back in 2 minutes. Welcome back. It's about 3:20 right now, and more and more we question what is in our food. What's in the food supply? What ends up on our plate? Do we actually know everything that goes into what we're eating on a daily basis, and all of the implications that come from that? Maricel Maffini, Dr. Maricel Maffini, who is a co-author of a report with the Environmental Working Group, is joining me now to talk a little bit about secret food additives. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And tell me how you feel about the food supply right now. I mean, doing what you do for a living, doing the research that you do, how do you feel about the food supply right now?
That is a question that is always asked to me. I eat everything. I try to be conscientious about what we eat. We cook a lot at home, but I'm trying to improve the system that will make everybody healthier, rather than just focusing on what we can eat at home, or the foods that we selected. But sometimes I have to raise my eyes and say, let's go with this because it's convenient. We don't have the time, and how life can sometimes is busy, and we just go with it. So my goal is to make a system that is more fair for everybody.
Life often lifes. And so sometimes we can't always, be picky about all of the things. But so there's this new investigation that finds secret added chemicals of unknown safety in the U.S. food supply. Were you shocked by the findings?
A little bit. I've been working on these issues for quite some time now, more than a decade. I think what surprised me the most is the number of new things like extracts from different plants or fruits. And I'm not sure I understand why we need to take an individual piece from a nutritious food, move it to a facility, make it in an industrial facility, and put it back into a less nutritious food. Whatever you get, that type of supplementation will not replicate the benefits of the original food. So that is something that I'm still trying to figure out why we are doing that.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, when we say 111 substances of unknown safety, how do companies get away with this?
They can, because there is, in the law, there was an exemption for things like flour and oils and vinegar that Congress said, FDA, we're giving you the power to regulate chemicals in food, substances in food, but we know that all these ones that we've been eating and consuming for decades are fine. So if these are generally recognized as safe, therefore FDA don't bother in doing a risk assessment or studying them more, because we know already that they are good. And there are supposed to be a small number of them. But that exemption was basically stretched to a point that everything goes now through this generally recognized as safe exemption or loophole in the law. So the great majority of new products are going to market in the food supply are now going through that path, rather than going to FDA for their approval. Only a handful of them in the last 20 years were actually approvals that FDA was asked to do.
This is pretty wild. So how concerned should we be as just everyday consumers?
Well, I think if you maintain a diverse diet, and I'm sure you may have heard of that terminology already, you are basically removing some of the risks that you can take when you are using or consuming the same foods over and over again that may contain some of these ingredients. The issue is, in the report we made it clear, we don't know how safe they are. We cannot say they are not safe, because the companies that make them and profit from them have not put their safety assessment in the public domain. So there is no way for people and experts to figure out if the decision that the companies made is actually correct.
Very interesting indeed. I have lots of question marks in my head from that. But what needs to change at the FDA? And I say that knowing that, not all changes are good, right? And so a part of, I think, the hesitancy for a lot of people every time we hear about a new change is, okay, what am I supposed to take from this one now? But what do you think needs to change at the FDA?
Well, one thing that I want to make clear is that FDA already has authorities to work on this and to make sure that these generally recognized as safe substances that are directly put in the market without anybody knows how safe they are or if they are safe at all, FDA has the tools to go and ask the companies for their data. So that is something that FDA can do today. Now, in the future, FDA has already proposed some new changes. We don't know exactly what type of reform they're doing because the proposed rule it is still under review, so there is no public information about it. But if I have to say something about the system, how to improve it, the secrecy should not be allowed. Both the agency that is in charge of protecting public health and the consumer should be able to identify what they can do to protect their families. They should be able to prevent through transparency reactions that are adverse, from allergies to problems with your GI tract. FDA should require that companies give them information. That should be a mandatory act. They cannot be in the dark. Again, the agency, how is going to protect us if they don't know what is in the food supply? The GRAS substances that we see now in the marketplace, they are new. They were never used before, most likely. So it cannot be generally recognized by the experts, by the scientific community, if nobody saw them before. So that it shouldn't be, a new substance should not be allowed to be GRAS unless FDA reviews it for safety. So those are just a few of those thoughts that we have and we express in the report.
Yeah, really important points that you made there. And I had written down transparency on my notes before you even said it. It seems like that would go a long way. Yes,
absolutely. Again, the term GRAS means generally recognized or safe. And that means that we know about it. You cannot say something is generally recognized when it's secret.
Okay, thank you so much. We certainly appreciate you, Dr. Maffini, for being here.
Thank you.
All right, you take care.
Bye.
Okay. Our next conversation is going to be with our very own Scott Schneider. He is here in Studio 32. Let's pull up a seat, give us 2 minutes, and we'll be right back with that conversation about his special report. Welcome back, everyone. 3:31. Scott Schneider is here, and you know that's a special occasion. So
kind. So kind.
He has a special report that's airing tonight. We said it's about one of his three loves. The last time we talked about automobiles.
Yes.
Tonight, your special is on UFOs.
It is. So before the war in Iran broke out, you may recall, Anita, that President Trump had directed the federal government to release any and all files on UFOs.
Yeah.
And there are many who believe that the reason that he made that announcement was some pressure applied to him as a result of the release of the documentary film, The Age of Disclosure.
Yeah.
That was released in November. I had spoken with the director last fall about the film. If you're not familiar with this film, it's currently available on Prime. It's really shaken Washington to its core because of the weight of the people that Dan Farah, the director, actually got to sit down and talk about this. And so I decided that I needed to talk to Dan again about, first of all, President Trump making this edict. Yes, I want things released publicly, but also about recent comments made by former President Barack Obama. And you may have heard the president was asked, do you believe in aliens?
Right.
Do they exist?
I didn't see them in the files.
So I'm glad you brought that up. So he goes on a podcast, does Barack Obama, and he says, well, you know, the universe is vast. I'm sure there's life out there, but as president, I never saw anything.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're out there as far as Area 51. I was never shown any proof. So I wanted to talk to Dan Farah about his reaction to those statements. He wasn't surprised at all. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight in my special report. Because as part of the legacy program, and going back to the documentary, this film chronicles, and I'll use the word alleged, but it chronicles this alleged program that is an 80-year government cover-up of not only the existence of aliens on Earth, Anita, but also this program that really had two missions. Number one, keep the truth from the American people, often through disinformation. And number two, to re-engineer or reverse engineer alien technology in what has become, and grab your tinfoil hats if you want, what has become the new Cold War race with China and Russia to master this technology. So just briefly, I so encourage people to watch this documentary on Prime.
And it is saying that it would foreseeably go around the president and not disclose it to the president for reasons.
Yes, and I specifically asked Dan, I said, why would Barack Obama say, I mean, first of all, 2 terms, beloved president, one of our, you know, if you look at, you know, they just came out with the presidential ratings, who's our most popular president, he's right up there near, you know, Washington and Jefferson. And why wouldn't they tell him? Mr. Obama, just so you know, there's Area 51. Well, Mr. Farah explains it very, very succinctly, and the answer is this. The presidency is transitory. You're there for 4 years, maybe the year for 8. These bureaucrats, they're there for decades. They're protecting their departments. They're protecting hundreds of employees. And the legacy program is not the only program that's top secret that presidents are not, you know, shown that, you know, when they walk in, oh, let's show them everything that we're doing here in the government. First of all, the government is massive, thousands and thousands of employees. So that's important to note. And what's also important to note is the reason we have this film, not only is Secretary of State Marco Rubio key, there's Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, other key lawmakers, but also we wouldn't have this film without the whistleblowers. These are people that were in the program, ATIP and some of these other programs, who really put their lives at risk, put their families' lives at risk. Since they've come out, their careers have been destroyed. We wouldn't have the knowledge that we do without them coming out and speaking out about it. And we also now have some video, because the government did release, you know, the Tic Tac video, this now, you know, that everybody's seen around the world. But what Dan wants, he just wants the truth. And you and I talked about this last time. I get snickers. Mike Kaplan, who I have a lot of respect for, he's got a big brain, as I like to say.
He does.
We spent years working together on Good Day Chicago, and he's of the mindset that we're alone in the universe, or at least he was when we used to work together. And, I respect anyone who is willing to, engage me in a debate about whether or not aliens exist. But what I like about this film is it at least, I think, gives the best argument to date that the government knows more than it's telling us.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. And I think the title says it all. It's time to disclose the truth.
And I mean, the popularity of it, not everyone has seen it, but the immediate popularity of it would suggest there are a lot of people who think like, let me watch this, because it does seem like society is trending in the direction of there's a lot of stuff that we don't know.
We don't know.
Might be held secret.
We're witnessing it when we look at now some of the video that's been released. Naval aviators, these are such accomplished pilots. Not only is it their instrumentation, but their own eyes that tell them that these crafts now they're becoming much more, it's much more common that they are engaging with them. They are doing things that we don't understand. The physics of gravity, of thrust, of vectors, of how their movements, we can't mimic it. We don't understand it. And when these pilots, these trained professionals are at a loss to understand how fast they're going, they can go as fast in air as they can underwater. I mean, it's so exciting. And I think for those of us, and I told you the story last time about my grandparents and what they saw, that black object that had no exhaust, it had no engines, it made no sound, and it scared my grandparents. But there is an object very similar in the Age of Disclosure that was witnessed by multiple servicemen at Vandenberg Air Force Base. When I watched the film, Anita, I froze because it was a black rectangle. California, my grandparents live in California. I don't know if it was a similar technology, but it sure made me think there's just more to what I knew to be true. And all I want, and I told Dan this in the interview, which is going to air tonight, before I leave this world, I just want to know the truth. That's all I want.
Yeah. And because of the whistleblowers, it did result in, congressional
that's right.
Hearings.
It's a great point.
So it does seem like more is coming out. I'll ask you your reaction that, okay, well, yes, there was the podcast with President Obama. Shortly after that, there was the question to Donald Trump. President Trump says, well, release the files, and Secretary Hegseth says, all right, well, this is what we're going to do. But now we're at war with Iran.
And now we're at war. We get so close, it's it's 2 steps forward, 1 giant step back. And the other thing I'm wondering about, Anita, is we've heard this messaging before. Sure, we're going to release everything. How many redactions are there going to be? How many black markers are we going to see when they finally do release the files? I do worry about that. I also asked Dan Farah, there's that great line in the movie A Few Good Men where Jack Nicholson says to Tom Cruise, you can't handle the truth. Because as we talked about briefly last time, there are religious factors to be considered as well. If we're not alone in the universe, what does that do to those people who are devout believers in a single God? And if there are in fact beings from other worlds, does that shake them to their very core?
My father, who's a minister, was asked that question recently because there are so many conversations that are being had now as a result of the Age of Disclosure coming out. And I do believe that many devoutly religious people feel that it's almost a sense of arrogance to believe that we even know everything about all that God created and intended.
It's a great point.
So I think that, it's a good thing we're having all of these different discussions. Whether we're actually going to see all of this, documentation still kind of remains to be seen. How does Dan feel about just advancing this cause?
Well, the one thing that he took away from, so he researched the film in secret. For one, he feared, like the whistleblowers, that there could be retaliation against him. So he spent 2.5 years researching it in secret, and also because of the stigma. Once the film was made and released, he had one wish. He's got a wish list, and it's a single line, that an American president will stand at a podium and say, "We are not alone in the universe." So I asked him, now that President Trump has asked for the release of these files, are you any more confident that we're closer to that moment? He said, absolutely. And Anita, he told me, because he talks to a lot of people in Washington, he said that there are people who have said that Donald Trump, it could be any day, Anita. It could be, once we get past Iran,
I was going to say, well, it probably won't be any day
that's
soon
a priority.
Right now, yeah.
But once we get past this, he could just wake up one morning and say, this is the day that I announce to the world, hey, everybody, we're not alone. Wouldn't that be something?
It would be something for sure. It would be something for sure. And in your conversations, with this filmmaker, this documentarian, does it change anything about your beliefs going into the age of disclosure?
Yeah, I think for me personally, where I have pause is I have little doubt in my mind that what we have seen now countless times around the world with this technology that we can't explain, I have no doubt that it is legit, that it's not AI, that it's not some creative filmmaker in Hollywood trying to trick us. Where I hit the pause button a little bit, we've heard testimony in Washington with whistleblowers saying, I've seen the bodies, I've seen the autopsies. I want to see that because there have been reports that these beings, if you've ever seen Close Encounters, Steven Spielberg's classic film, towards the end of the film, when they leave their massive ship to engage with the humans, they're very tall, they're lanky, they're very skinny, but they're humanoid in presence. From what we are led to believe, they come in different sizes and shapes, Anita. They're very tall, they're very small. I'm having a difficult time wrapping my mind around that. And there's a great line, and I don't know who said it first, but when Christopher Columbus arrived in the New World, the natives who lived here, they had never seen ships before. Their minds couldn't process what they were looking at. My mind can't process what an alien life form. If that day comes and we see that, and you and I are journalists, and we're supposed to remain objective, that's going to be difficult for me. It really is.
Yeah, I could see it. I could see. Wow. Okay, so when can we see part 2 now?
So tonight at 9, where you're going to see at least an excerpt of my conversation with Dan, and then what we are going to effort is to get that entire interview on our YouTube channel. If not today, it'll be in the next couple of days.
Okay, I'm sure people will be clicking away on it.
And one more quick thing, Dan informed me, and I didn't know this, he is currently working on Age of Disclosure Part 2.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Did he give you any insight as to where he's going with
I
things?
didn't ask because I like to be surprised.
Okay. All right. It's about 3:45, everyone. Thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure.
We'll certainly be watching this evening. Give us 2 minutes. We'll be right back. right, everyone, it's 3:47 right now, gearing up for our final conversation here on Chicago Live for the day, and it's a doozy. You know, when you get ready to take a picture and they say cheese, that's what we're talking about right now. John Umhofer, he is the executive director for the Wisconsin Cheesemakers Association, is joining me now. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, great to be here. Thank you.
And did I get that last name correct?
Very close, very close.
Well, correct me. Tell me, how is it supposed to be?
Umhafer.
Umhafer. Okay, Umhafer. Thank you so much. I'm always okay with the correction. Get me right. Okay, so tell us about the Cheese Champs. What's going on with cheese right now in the 2024 World Championship Cheese Contest?
So we are hosting and have hosted since 1957 the largest cheese competition in the world. And it is now grown to 3,375 entries, including cheeses, butters. We've got yogurt now. We've got dry dairy ingredients like whey, which is so popular. And so we have our largest contest, second largest contest we've ever had since 1957. So we have 4 truckloads of cheese here at the Monona Terrace in Madison, and 56 judges from around the world are tasting it and making sure it's looking for the winner, basically, in each class.
So what does 2026 have that previous competitions did not have?
Well, I think really we're seeing a great amount of diversity. One of the great additions this year is a large contingent of Japanese cheeses.
Ooh.
And we've had cheeses come in from the Republic of Georgia and Croatia. And basically, we've got 22 nations around the world on 5 continents that have sent cheese into Madison, Wisconsin.
Oh, and how does the regional production change the taste?
Oh, it's very different around the world, and that really is true even within the United States. And it really comes down to what the cows are eating. Out in the eastern United States, if you taste a cheddar, it has the sort of the cooked egg flavor, the sulfur note that is really desirable in like a Vermont cheddar. In the Midwest, you have more of a meaty, brothy sort of cheddar. On the West Coast, it's milder. So even within the United States, you have different flavors for the same cheese. So then you taste an English cheddar, very different. And there's cheddar made all over the world. There's cheddar we hear today from New Zealand and Australia that has its own more buttery flavor. So it really is what the cows are eating, and that impacts the cheese.
John, I'm sitting here trying not to like zone out and just think about all that you're talking about. It sounds delicious.
Yeah.
So I see there are, 3 Chicago area companies in the competition.
I would believe that. I'm thinking, I don't know if you have them listed there, but I think of cheese merchants. There's Savencia down in your area. There's Koblina down in your area. So that's probably some of them.
Mm-hmm. Let's see.
Caputo cheese is down in your area.
Caputo cheese of Melrose Park is on the list for sure. Chelino Cheese Company of Joliet. Global Foods International of Schiller Park. And V&V Supremo Foods of Chicago?
Yeah, V&V, yes. And they've won many awards at this competition.
Aha, okay. So, I mean, how do you judge?
Well, this is a unique kind of contest. In our world, it's a lot like figure skating, believe it or not. We assume there's perfection, and then, like in figure skating, they look for mistakes. Ooh. And in cheese judging, they look for mistakes. They say, oh, this is a little too bitter. I'm going to take 1/10 of a point off of 100. And it's a little too salty. I'll take another 1/10 of a point off. And by the time they're done reviewing the look and the smell and the flavor and the feel of the cheese, the texture in their mouth, the cheese may score 97.5. And so in each class, like a cheddar class or a blue class, one cheese will have the highest score, and that one cheese out of, say, maybe 50 to 75 cheeses will win the gold medal.
How many pieces of cheese does a judge eat for all of this?
They'll tell you it's a challenge today. I think they're all eating about 75 pieces of cheese today.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my gosh.
Well, Like a wine tasting, they are not swallowing the cheese. So use your imagination there.
Yeah, my imagination has gone to the issues they're going to have after this competition. They are sacrificing themselves on behalf of judging. I'm sure it's a wonderful competition, but I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Well, we've had a room full of hundreds of visitors. We have the public here, and we've been sampling cheeses that didn't place high. So those immediately are cut up and fed to the public, and we've got hundreds of people in there grazing on world champion quality cheese all day.
Wow. So do people come from all over the world just to even be a part of this? Not just the participants, but like people who want to be just in the mix of it all? And what qualifies you to judge? Because it seems very subjective, but if you mentioned like a wine competition, so there might be a sommelier. Well, what qualifies you to judge?
There really is an equivalent to that. In our industry, we've got at least, I'd say about a quarter of the folks in there are dairy science professors, food science professors who teach cheese making or who teach quality food production. Then we've got people who, for a living, believe it or not, taste cheese and grade it every day of their lives. And they decide whether that their store or their brand will buy truckloads of cheese. So every day they're tasting cheese. That's probably the most prevalent type of judge we have, is people who do this every single day. And then we have people from around the world that are just well-known cheese experts. We've got French people from France and Denmark and Switzerland and Netherlands and Italy and 22 countries. So basically, these are an elite group of, we found about 500 people around the world that we dip into from a pool of people who really study cheese.
Wow. And I'm seeing 3,375 entries across
Correct.
150 classes of dairy products. This is all happening between the 3rd and the 5th. Is that enough time?
Actually, they're tasting them all today and tomorrow. The third day is just the gold medals going against each other to pick that one best cheese in the world. So they're eating all that cheese in 2 days, and they're still at it in the other room.
Yeah, they're going to have to give themselves some time before they go home to their families. That's a lot. Wow. This is amazing. How long have you been in this industry?
I have been running this competition in this Wisconsin Cheesemakers Association since 1992, and we've seen the contest grow tenfold, from 200 to 2,000 and now up to almost 4,000 entries in that time.
Wow. Well, what an amazing, run you have had, that you continue to lead. And how many, let's start with like how many Illinois champs you've had versus how many Wisconsin champs you've had.
Well, it's a tough thing to put one against the other. We mentioned the handful of cheese factories in Illinois, but we still have about 140 cheese factories in Wisconsin. So it really is a David and Goliath situation on the cheese side. But, V&V has won consistently. Cheese Merchants has won down there. I think Savencia, which is up in northern Illinois, has won. Koblina has won. So it's definitely award-winning cheese down in Illinois, but then Wisconsin has just a lot of factories doing well.
Well, it's been wonderful chatting with you. I cannot wait to see the pictures and videos of the champs once you crown them and get that going and designate them as the top dogs or the top cheese once it's all said and done.
Google it up about 2 p.m. on Thursday. Just look at World Championship Cheese Contest. It'll Google up. We'll have that live announcement online 2 o'clock on Thursday.
Can't wait. Thank you so much. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Happy eating.
Bye-bye.
All right. 3:56. Give us 2 minutes. We'll be back. Hey, welcome back, everyone. Thanks so much, as always, for being here online for another day of Chicago Live. We'll see you back here tomorrow between the hours of 1 and 4 p.m. And I'm going to end today the way we ended yesterday and the way we will until our troops come home, that our thoughts and prayers are with each one of them and their families right now as they serve overseas.
Live from Chicago, this is Fox 32 News at 4.